On January 15, 1919, the city of Boston experienced one of the strangest disasters in American history, the Great Molasses Flood. It wasn't caused by fire, war, or an earthquake. Instead, it was caused by a giant wave of sticky, sweet syrup. The event left the city shocked and became a story people would talk about for generations. The disaster began in the north end of Boston, a neighborhood filled with busy streets, small homes, and factories. On Commercial Street, the Purity Distilling Company had built a huge metal storage tank. It was 50 feet tall and 90 feet wide, and it held more than 2 million gallons of molasses. Molasses is a thick, dark syrup used to make things like rum, candy, and baked goods. At the time, Boston was an important center for trade, and molasses was stored there before being shipped out. The tank was built quickly in 1915, and workers soon noticed it wasn't very strong. It leaked molasses so often that children from the neighborhood would come with pails to scoop up the syrup that dripped down its sides. The company tried to hide the problem by painting the tank brown so the leaks would be less noticeable, but the real issue wasn't fixed, and the tank remained unsafe. On January 15, 1919, Boston was experiencing an unusual winter day. The weather had warmed quickly after several days of freezing cold. This sudden change in temperature may have put extra pressure on the molasses tank. Around 12:30 in the afternoon, with no warning, the massive tank burst open. A roaring wave of molasses rushed out, 25 feet high at its peak and moving at about 35 miles per hour. The sticky flood tore through the streets, smashing buildings, overturning wagons, and sweeping people and animals along with it. Wooden homes and businesses were crushed by the force of the syrup. Even the elevated train tracks nearby were twisted and damaged. People in the area described hearing a loud rumble, like a machine or thunder, just before the tank collapsed. Then came the wave of dark liquid. Some said the ground shook as the molasses thundered through the neighborhood. Horses pulling wagons were trapped in the sticky mess, and residents had to fight to keep from being swallowed by the thick, heavy syrup. Rescue efforts began quickly, but the molasses made everything harder. Firefighters, police officers, and volunteers rushed to help, but moving through the sticky flood was nearly impossible. The molasses hardened as it cooled in the winter air, trapping people and animals. Rescuers had to wade through waist-deep syrup, using boats in some areas to search for survivors. It took days to clean up the immediate mess, and weeks before the streets were fully cleared. When the flood was over, 21 people had lost their lives, and more than 100 were injured. The disaster destroyed homes, businesses, and part of the city's infrastructure. For years afterward, people in Boston said that on hot summer days, the streets of the North End still smelled faintly of molasses. The Great Molasses Flood raised important questions about safety. Investigations showed that the storage tank had been poorly built and never properly tested. The steel walls were too thin to hold so much liquid, and the company had ignored the leaks. In the years that followed, stricter building codes and safety inspections were put in place to prevent similar tragedies. The disaster became an important lesson about the importance of careful engineering and responsibility. Today, the Great Molasses Flood is remembered as one of the most unusual events in American history. It's often told as a strange or even funny story, but for the people who lived through it, it was frightening and tragic. It shows how even something as simple and sweet as molasses can become dangerous under the wrong circumstances. Boston has changed a lot since 1919, but the memory of that day remains part of the city's history. The Great Molasses Flood reminds us that disasters can come in unexpected forms, and it highlights the importance of paying attention to safety no matter how ordinary something might seem.